for their continued support to the National Press Conference. We'd like to also thank you, members of the press, for being in attendance kindly. I'd like to inform the rest of the world that the voice of GDEC 88.5 event GDEC country, Smart FM 98.6, Flash FM 102.2, Top FM 105.3, Voice of Hope Radio in Cleveland, Solican District in Maryland County. They are all helping us to relay this press briefing. Under the leadership of Honorable Jolene Marvin Pia, we have the 5 O's. The 5 O's include 1 government, 1 communication, 1 platform, 1 message, and 1 goal. That is, all auxiliaries of the government of Liberia, you are requested to use the national platform to inform the Liberian people about the happening within your entity. Without much ado, I'd like to invite the chief spokesperson of the Republic of Liberia, Honorable Jolene Marvin Pia, who will make his introductory comments, after which we will officially introduce to you our guests for today's press briefing. Mr. Pia.
We'd like to welcome you again at the Ministry of Information, our regular press conference. Just this week alone, today is the third of the next press conferences we are having. We're doing this because we believe the government is doing a lot. We got a lot to offer the public, and so more time is required to engage you members of the press. Like the Director for Public Affairs said, today we have the Ministry of Finance. I can understand that many of you have the interest when you see the Ministry of Finance coming to address. I noticed the voice a little bit back compared to yesterday and the other days. So it's a good thing. The ministry can be assured that whatever message will be put out today will be properly communicated. So I just wanted to clear out a couple of things before I invite the acting minister to address you. We are still receiving updates on the North Star in Riverses. 7 persons were rescued between yesterday and the day before yesterday, alive, but with different conditions, fractured bones, etc. 2 of those were transferred to the GFK, and the others are being treated in the county. We want to pay special tribute to one of your colleagues, Journalist Henry Flomo, former Communication Director at the National Elections Commission, UPAS. We are told the PEL is supposed to open a book of condolence. We will make appropriate representation. Yesterday, there was a concern concerning the former police director, Patricia, that a vehicle he was using was seized by the asset recovery team. and that led to a complete political wahala, if I can put it that way. I'd like to state on behalf of the government that the situation concerning the vehicle is being investigated. The General Services Agency is in charge of the process. When the investigation is concluded and the determination is made on the status of the vehicle, the action thereof will be communicated to you members of the press. If what I can say is that at the conclusion of those investigations, if no wrongdoing is determined, the car will be returned to the director. If it is determined that the car is being possessed illegally, the appropriate action will be taken. At current, that determination has now been made, and it is our understanding that Mr. Sulu is cooperating with the investigators so that we bring this matter to peaceful conclusion. But there is a concern concerning this issue that I want to speak to. 2 days ago at the press conference, I emphasized that we have one government. When it appears before the Liberian Senate for confirmation, I said the ministry was determined to speak collectively for the entire government, whether it's the legislature, the executive, or the judiciary. And it is my hope that the rest of the officials in the other branches of government will embrace this kind of concept that we are bringing forth. In fact, as we speak, I'm working behind the scenes with the President Pro Tem and the Speaker for the both of them to come here honorably in the Charles William Hall to give an account of his stewardship at the legislature. They are inclined to cooperate. That is the kind of system we're trying to build with government communication. And I think what we can do, irrespective of which part of the government we are, we got to see ourselves together as a government. We cannot be government officials and at the same time attempting to be activists. We tried to address this Patrick situation yesterday, and rather than people in the other branches of the government, especially people from the legislature, try to approach us if they have some concerns and doubts, they resorted to activism. Running from radio station to radio station against the government that they are a part of. There are so many things happening in this country, and some of the lawmakers involved to be focused on those situations. When I drive from Douala to come to work in Broadway, I'm driving on a narrow road with more than 38 trucks passing me every day, transporting iron ore. If I was a representative or senator from that region, that would be my concern. Not to be running to radio station talking about car process that will be amicably resolved. You cannot be part of a system and fight. You can disagree with an approach. But can you approach the appropriate authorities if you got disagreement? It's all about activism. Government officials are not activists. They have a piece of job to do, and that's what our focus should be. And we got to treat each other with a little bit of respect. When you want to quote me well. Don't misinform the public. Because when I speak, I do my best to do so with utmost clarity. I know it's been in the media about some documentation being thrown out concerning money from Social Security, MICAT. Listen to me. Liberia is a very respected nation. During the period of the inauguration, we were receiving very important guests. We could not even point to vehicles that would convey those guests. During that process, solutions were being found. And part of the solution was to look at the whole of government and see where do you get money from to do something about this urgent matter. So Mr. Grisby interacted with the Social Security and about 5 vehicles. It saved the government from embarrassment. Guests were moved from one point to another. Maybe the process was not right. Somebody would say, in what capacity did he ask for the money since he wrote a letter? Maybe that's a genuine case. Two things for me stand up. One, did we treat our guests with dignity because we had car to treat them so? Yes. The second concern should be, can we trace those vehicles? Where are they? Are they around as government property? Of course, I'm told the answer is yes. If those vehicles are bought, used, or belong to the Ministry of State, for example, are they being used by personnel of the Ministry of State or reserved maybe for moving guests? Those are genuine concerns. Since the money came from Social Security, it means the money was money for pensioners. With the Ministry of State, after having a budget, reimburse the money at the Ministry of State. Say if they have if they have money in their budget for 10 cars, will they cut the 10 cars down to 5 because they already have 5 and send the money back to Social Security? I think that would be the right thing to do. And I have no doubt that they will do so. But if you try to imply criminality in this kind of process, then I think it's more politics than a genuine concern about what has happened. Also, it's been all in the news that MICAT is this, MICAT is that. Officer in charge has spent 600,000 plus in 2 months. We've held conversations. The evidences point to the fact that no such expenditures were made. In fact, as we speak, the building that MICAT is using for their offices, they are indebted to the owners of that building in the tune of 300,000. And the building costs 150,000 per annum. MICAT took a decision, the past administration, to build a new headquarters. They signed the contract with BNC in July. And the value for the contract was 2.9 million. July 2023. November 23rd, 2023. I was after all the electoral processes. First round, the runoff in November. A winner was known. The contract was amended. An additional 1.5 million. I had taken the contract value from 2.9 to 4.5 million. Isn't that a concern to people? Why was the value of the contract initially 2.9 million? Why was there a need to amend the contract by November 23rd, 2023, after all the electoral process? People should be asking fundamental questions as to why that was. When MICAT had financial challenges and they had to put in some austerity measures, it affected the pay level of the people working in MICAT. Management took a decision that they would provide what they call educational benefits to the start, it is established that for 5 years, the educational benefits were not paid. And the total of that debt portfolio is 132,000 plus on the employees. It will not be paid. But guess what? When the employees could not receive those amounts, the former officials who were leaving, those were taking care of themselves in severance. The former CEO that the board approval got 172,000 plus. The deputy who was in charge of finance got 139,000. Chairman of the board got 66,000 plus. The two other board members got 56,000 each. If you sum up this, huge money, easy to pay. 132,000 owed all the employees combined could not be paid. The very local project, construction project that BNC is undertaking, it is our understanding that the work has gone 80% plus. By their payment schedule, they owe the entity over 800,000. When the board was constituted, the officer in charge, member of the board, sought approval for 400,000 to be paid. That approval was not given, no dam has been paid. That's all what it takes, and just spent 600,000. We cannot do everything in this country with politics. So much so to the extent that we will impugn on people's reputation when we don't have facts to support those claims. So we just thought to clear these issues out. You are media people. You got a way of cross-checking the things we say. Do your self-investigation. Go beyond what we say to you. Go beyond what those making those allegations are saying. And help bridge the misinformation gap. It's important to do so. I will hold on here, much more to say, especially in the local issue, but let me announce to you that on Monday, we'll have a special edition of our press conference. Meaning next week we'll have 3 more. On Monday, the officer in charge, Jacob Akoli, will be here to address our press conference. All of you will have the opportunity to interact to be asked all the hard questions about local, so that the doubts you have, misunderstanding, misinformation that have been provided, can be resolved through very positive engagement with the CEO or the officer in charge. Having said that, it's now my pleasure to invite the acting Minister of Finance. By the way, the Minister of Finance proper is out of the country. Deputy Minister Myers is in charge, and he is going to address this press conference. He came with a team. I'm sure when he takes the platform, when he talk to you, he will introduce his team. Mr. Minister.
Good afternoon, members of the press. All right, thank you, MICAT, for saving the day. Good afternoon, members of the press. Good afternoon, Liberians whom I have brought, and good afternoon to the friends of Liberia who are watching this press conference and listening. So we appreciate the Ministry of Information and LBS for facilitating this. This has now become an institutional process of government that on a regular basis, those in charge of the functions of the state in various capacities should come and brief the country. There is nothing more democratic, there is nothing more accountable than briefing the people who are your employers. So this afternoon we've come to share with you the updates on the budget process as well as other matters pertaining to the fiscal management of the country. So for that purpose, I've come with a team of policymakers and technicians from the Ministry of Finance. We have here the Deputy Minister for Budget and Development Planning, which is Tanen G. Bronson, and the Assistant Minister for Budget, which is Cyril McGill Molva. Our Deputy Minister for Administration, Mr. Bill McGill Jones, and a host of directors and other senior technicians from the Revenue and Tax Policy Division, Planning Division, and Budget Division. So we should have been joined by our colleague, Honorable Jebu Wazu, who is the Deputy for Economic Management, or he's got another present engagement, one of those many engagements that the Ministry of Finance is involved with. So he has to be seconded to that one. So for the purpose of this press conference, I, as acting minister, I will in some cases be providing overarching summaries. Then in my capacity as Deputy Minister for Fiscal Affairs, I will give you some updates that are relevant to tax and revenue administration, as well as in some instances, the expenditure management, since the Controller Accountant General is now with us. So to begin with, of course, the headline information I know all of us will be interested in is the revenue envelope. You've already heard in the news that we submitted a budget of 692.4 million. So for this meeting, I will want to first give you the revenue component of that. We have 649 million of the 692 coming from domestic sources, of which we have 540 from tax revenue and 128 or almost 129 coming from non-tax revenue. You will notice that if we compare these numbers with the end of year performance for 2023, there were increases both on the aggregate non-tax and tax revenue, as well as some of the significant lines that make up those aggregates. So tax revenue, for example, the end year balance was 525, but the projection for 2024 is 540 overall. So that's an increase of more than 15 million. What drives the increases? Taxes on income and profits, whether it's personal income taxes that you and I pay on our salaries, or corporate income taxes that come from businesses. End of 2023, there was 231.3 million. This year, the forecast is 242.7 million. That's more than 900,000 increase. Then, more than 9 million increase. $9 million increase, let's get it correct. Then taxes on property. End of year for 2023, it was 4.7. For this year's projection is 5.1. And we will share with you the details, but the only area of significant reduction, or not too significant reduction, is the fines, penalties, and forfeits, which came down by 15%, 30%, sorry. And another area in the budget that we saw significant reduction, which was a deliberate decision by the government, was in the area of external resources. In the past fiscal year, loans particularly, plus some minimum grant amounted to over 200 million of the end of the year budget. In addition to that, of course, there were some transfers onto the government account that were not accounted for. This was the one that is now public knowledge, the 83.6 million that was borrowed from the central bank without following due process, i.e., debt management committee action, i.e., legislative approval. I'm sure the minister referred to this during his confirmation. So if we compare the numbers in our FMI system, the financial management system, and the cash flow at the central bank, that difference is there. And of course, the accounts are being audited by the GAC. Preliminary reports are out. The final report will come out, and I'm sure the public will be informed accordingly. So for that reason, we have decided to manage the debt. Manage the debt, there are two actions that you can take in managing your debt. You reduce your borrowing as well as pay some of the debt you owe. So let's start with the reduction in borrowing. If you look in the budget, it's only 40 million borrowing that going to happen in this fiscal year. And the arrangement for that was already in place before this team took over in the first week of February. So negotiations were already concluded, contracts were already signed, so we had to assume that and include it in the budget. But on the payment side, we have programmed 129 million debt servicing to reduce the debt stock domestically and externally. And on the domestic debt front, it's important to note that the commercial banks in Liberia were choking from non-performing loans taken by government contractors who could not pay back pre-financing loans that they took for various projects or undertaken on behalf of government. In some cases, when those debts owed by the companies could not be paid, the government had to convert those debts into its own debt. So government debts to domestic or banks were increasing. That's one aspect. The other side of it was making it difficult for the contractors who provide significant infrastructure services to the country who no longer get pre-financing as is normal. So we took a deliberate action as a ministry in consultation with other stakeholders in government to meet with the commercial banks. We've had a series of meetings with them, beginning even when we were still doing the or transitional consultations. So in this budget, most of what you will see going to commercial bank is a negotiated interest payment term, so that we will negotiate with them to restructure the principal on those debts. Then on the external front, we were at risk of losing our place and our status in many ways. For example, the African Development Bank, of which Liberia is a founding member, of which a Liberian has once served as its president, threatened to draft Liberia or take some punitive measure against the country if we didn't pay that debt. That was one of the first actions that this government took immediately upon taking over. Then on the external front, a lot of disbursement come from various structures that are managed by the World Bank coming to Liberia. There was a payment that we needed to make to trigger some inflows into the many projects here that are funded by the bank. That initiative was taken. And as we speak, on a weekly basis, we do our best to make sure that we meet all the timelines and schedules for the debt that we have to service. So before I turn over to the Minister of Budget, a brief preview or overview of the economic outlook. So in the past years, especially pre and post-COVID, our economic profile has not been favorable. We all know the impact of COVID globally, but on Liberia most especially, there were also some significant reductions in the performance of our GDP. But over the next 3 years, we expect a positive outlook. In 2024, it's projected a 5.3% growth in GDP. And then 2025 and 2026 going to 2027, an average of 6.4% growth. Now, someone will wonder why GDP at this time, we are here too much on GDP. But it's important because the revenue that we are talking about and the budget that we are discussing is a function of the economy. If the GDP is doing well, if there is more productivity, then you are increasing the revenue base. People earning more money, they pay more income tax, they pay more corporate taxes. People importing, they pay more custom duties. When they are exporting, they pay more export duties. Those who import petroleum, for example, they pay all the charges, the custom, exas, and others that are related to petroleum. In that case, the revenue envelope expands. Then government's ability to make allocations to different expenditure priorities is also enhanced. We will take questions on other things, so we don't want to belabor the point for now, so I will allow the Deputy Minister for Budget and Development Planning to come and give specific updates on the budget that was submitted to the legislature and some of the key priorities that consisted of the 692.4 million. Thank you. Minister?
Good afternoon to everyone. Honorable Minister, members of the press, our listening audience. I'm very happy to be here at this press briefing to provide an update on our national budget. As you are all aware, we have submitted the draft budget to the National Legislature for the fiscal year 2024 in a tone of 692 million, which is a 10% decrease compared to the budget of 2023. In this budget, domestic revenue is projected at 649.98 million, of which tax revenue accounts for 531 million, and non-tax accounts for 110 million. External sources are projected at 42.43 million. The total expenditure envelope is divided into two main categories: recurrent and non-recurrent, which is comprised of what we call PSIP, Public Sector Investment Program. And that amounts to 51.89 million. The key drivers of the recurrent expenditures are compensation, which is 42%, debt servicing, 20%, grants, 15%, subsidy, 2.3%, social benefits, 2.8%, and non-financial assets, 0.5%. There were some tough decisions that we faced in the preparation of the 2024 budget, all in the interest of the Liberian families. These included reductions in critical cost drivers in the budget and redirecting them towards needed sectors in line with the President's vision. Some of the adjustments we made, we managed to reduce compensation down to 297 million, helping to reduce the voted GOL payroll. Despite the constrained fiscal space and in line with the PFM law, we are committed to paying our external and domestic obligations in a total of 129 million. Domestic liability comprised of 69.18 and external liability 59.82 million. We believe that doing this will help to improve the government's credibility, thereby spurring domestic economy and boosting external confidence. Hence, the reason for a slight reduction in PSIP. Additionally, we have committed ourselves to paying liabilities owed to regional and continental bodies and the ECOWAS African Union, etc. We have also provided funds for all ministries and agencies at a total of about 90.1 million, mainly for training of law enforcement officers, fight against illegal drugs, purchase of essential drugs, vaccines, medical supplies, educational materials, food for hospitals, prisons, payment of examination fees, bank charges, capacity building, rental, etc. This we hope will jumpstart to get the government working, hence the slight reduction in PSIP. Additionally, we allocated about 23 million for the GOL 100 days operations, of which about 85% will be going towards road infrastructure and the rest allocated towards other arrest interventions. We are also in the process of developing our next national development plan, which will be accompanied by the country development agenda for all 15 county development agenda for all 15 counties. These will culminate in the costing of the PSIPs for the National Development Plan around the rest and serve as flagship, which will serve as flagship projects for the president over the period 2025 to 2029. So on the expenditure side, let me just give you a bit more detail. On the recurrent side, compensation is 297 million. Use of goods and services which institution has for operations is 85 million. Subsidies 2.16 billion. Grants 106. Social benefits 17. Non-financial assets 2.5. Domestic liabilities 69. Foreign liabilities 59. Bringing the total to 692 million. Also included in that, in those numbers are some of the obligations to domestic partners include the central bank, commercial banks, and other businesses. I'm skipping because some of these expenses I already went through and I don't want to really regurgitate them. Okay, as I told you, we already started working on the next national development plan. We have had a couple of engagements with some of our development partners who have expressed a willingness to support us in that program. We have a concept note that has been developed that we have shared with our partners. Next week, I know there's a meeting with the UN family with the technicians to see how we can craft out some of the things that we have in there. For the next development plan, we have decided to go into, we'll do it by counties and districts. And the rationale is that the government already has approved the decentralization act, meaning that at the county level and district level, government will be more independent at those levels. So if we are developing the plan for the next 5 years, we thought it would be good to have development plan at the county level that can serve as a basis for the operations that you want to do at those levels. So the 15 county agenda anticipated to be developed. The PSIP program will contain PSIPs that are economically and socially environmentally viable. Flagship projects will be developed from the arrest focus areas. To date, we have the concept note, we have the roadmap, the detailed budget has been developed and shared with key stakeholders. Funding has been identified from fiscal year 2024, and some partners have committed technical and financial support towards the development of the plan. Our national vision, which expanded to Liberia in 2030, serves as an inspiration for and excites all Liberians to have the government work towards middle income status. The pathway towards this inspiration would consist of a series of 5 years development plans. What is left is this last 5 years, which is what we're talking about. So we find that now is the opportunity to fully develop this last plan, which should bear all elements that will fulfill the aspiration of the national vision. Ushering the new government on 2024 will finally unlock the opportunity to begin factoring this plan. So as part of the plan, even though we crafted this with the vision of the president, there are also commitments that we have, like the SDGs, which and the Africa Agenda 2063, which our development plan must also be aligned to. So those would be, and also the Paris Agreement on climate change. So our development plan, we're looking at climate change, we're looking at gender, and other key initiatives that are internationally recommended that we, as a country, must also should be society. I think I will stop here because I think most of the things that I had in this I have already spoken. So I will stop here. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen of the press, at this juncture, I'd like to encourage you to please come in the queue. Gentlemen, please, just a little bit, please, so that the guys that come to ask the question can be able to please. One question per individual journalist. Introduce yourself and ask the question. Minister, please take both 3 questions at a time, then you can address it. Thank you.
My name is Olio Phillips. I work for the Liberia newspaper. Even though the other saying one question.
1 second. Not even those directors ask 1 question. As a routine. 1 question.
My name one question. My name is Olio. I work for the Liberia newspaper. In time past, the national budget, which is the national money matter, and we all focus on it. The Ministry of Finance doing the budget, and that's the figure. Time come to see what you're short for. My question: how realistic is the budget of 692.4 million? Thank you.
Thank you so much. My name is Dr. Flanner and I report for Schoolnet. One concern. We noticed that the rate and also inflation skyrocketing. You did not mention anything where you met the country in terms of addressing inflation in the US dollars rate. Why is it that the rate continues to, skyrocket? And what measures are you taking to contain that?
My name is Anthony Grady and I report for ECOWAS region. My concern has to do with bread and butter issue. The past government had this economization process that which somehow led to outcry of public servants. And this government came to the platform of bringing betterment and better life to public servants. is this budget looking at the annual increasement in salaries, especially for those that are making below the standard wages of $150, whereas some people are making $75, $60. We didn't hear something about that, please. You can address that, please.
So that'll be the question 4. The number out of 4 personnel and the minister of answer.
Stephen Rawas is my name, for Joy FM. Mr. Ministers, I'm a bit concerned about the expenditure of the budget. When you talk about it, basically being concerned on expenditure, basically on ministry agencies, governmental ministry agencies, as compared to the impact it will have on the locals. Why is it that your budgets are deeply focused on maybe the functions and operations of government agencies and ministries as compared to the livelihood status of the Liberian people? Thank you.
I will answer, and then, as always, when we are a team, I will answer to the extent that I can, and then others, the DMB will provide some bit of details. So, starting with the budget shortfall and the credibility of the budget. We know this has been a phenomenon in our budgeting process for a while, especially in the past 6 years. So that is what we wanted to avoid. That is why we took some time to ensure that we are sure of all of the numbers. As a budget practitioner of almost 20 years, the assumptions that go into the budget are many. Some look favorable, some look not too favorable, and some look 50-50. But we can tell you this, every dollar and cent that we have programmed in this budget are figures that we cross-check, we verify, we work with multiple agencies, including, for example, LRA, which is a revenue administration agency. Their ability to collect certain kinds of revenue. Do they have the administrative arrangement? We confirm that. Then those other entities of government through which economic activities are generated, like the Port Authority, for example, for custom revenue, like LPRC, for example, for taxes on petroleum and related products, as well as the domestic revenue division of the LRA that administers domestic taxes. So all of these R's were dotted and the T's were crossed to ensure that the 692.4 million resources that we are sure of generating given all of the assumptions. That is why, for example, as I said earlier, we decided to be very frugal. We decided to be very cautious on the side of external revenue. That partly addresses that, I'm sure, as present member, you will always have subsequent issues. Then on the issue of the exchange rate, yes, because like I said, there is an exchange, we're going to provide the details based on your questions. So, as of 2023 coming into 2024, the exchange rate has been fluctuating, we know this. Average exchange rate, for example, in the, or let's say inflation rate, the year-end inflation rate for 2023 was 10.6 million. This year is projected to be around 8 million. So, which means we know why inflation is the prices of goods and services. And embedded in this is not just the prices of goods and services, it's also the exchange rates as a price of foreign currency is also included in this. So, which means that if we are coming from 10.6 down to 8%, and then we expect 5.8% in 2025 and 5.4% going to 2026, which means the macroeconomic policies have favorable outlook because inflation is a function of how much economic activities that you are generating. Because the more goods and services there are, then there is there are options for buyers, and so the competition for prices will reduce. This explains some of the reasons. Then on the possible increment in salaries, yes, this is a concern that we had because we know the harmonization policy was a mixed application of a recommendation from our international partners. Over time, both domestic and external parties have been concerned about the increment in the wage rate. When we were leaving office in 2018, the wage bill was between 295 to 296 million. And we have plans in place for us to bring it down further. Then, of course, came the mass employment. And then when the mass employment could not be sustained by what was available, then harmonization set in. Now, harmonization, based on the ratio analysis in whatever way you do it, even given all of the people that were added, when you slash salaries by almost 50% across the board, you should still be lower than 296 million. All of institutions in the society have done our analysis, they are available. CPA, for example, can provide those details. So our plan is to indeed go back to what this party administration, Unity Party administration started in 2006. We met minimum salary at $15, and we ended it at around 125 minimum salary, without having any impact on the government finances. So what do we intend to do? 2 days ago, the CSA Director General was here. He talked about the upcoming payroll audit. And I was speaking to some police yesterday, and I gave them this scenario. If you have a garden and you want the garden to grow, maybe it's a potato green garden or some other crops, before you apply fertilizer, you take out the weeds. Because if you leave the weeds in and apply fertilizer, both good plants and the weeds will all grow together and it will choke your crop. So the fertilizer in this case is salary increment. But before we do that, we should know who are the real civil servants. I was a civil servant. I was a civil servant for over 10 years. I know what it means to wake up and walk great distance to the nearest bus stop or where you can find taxi. Then there are others who, while you are waking up, they are relaxing. They are laying down in their beds and they get money more than you. That is a phenomenon we face now. Probably, I urge you members of the media to have a one-on-one engagement with the civil service agency or with some of the ministries that account for, like the police, for example. Or even you can find the time and book an appointment with our DMA. The payroll is not just bloated, but the payroll is bad. The payroll is rotten. So with civil service payroll audit already announced, which we are supporting. Yesterday we had a meeting with the GAC. So the GAC and the CSA are working out a program to submit to us with respect to how much a comprehensive government-wide payroll audit will cost. And the two agencies have given all indications, especially we are finance, because here we are answering financial questions. The sanctity of the payroll is our challenge. The Deputy Minister told you about how difficult it was to make those allocations. See the size of the compensation compared to other needs. This goes to the subsequent question about what happened to local communities, what happened to service delivery. Salary, the wage bill is choking service delivery. When we came in at the beginning of February, we couldn't have salary secure for all ministries and agencies and branches of government. It was frustrating to see that you have salaries taken care of for ministries and agencies, but no operating funds. What do they need? What do ministries and agencies need to deliver services? They need operation funds. Health people have to go into the communities. The education people have to go in the communities. The The security people have to do night patrol, they got to do police operations. The military need to do regular patrol. The immigration has to be at the borders. So the 90 plus million that the minister talked about were some of the difficult decisions that we took. Is that enough? No. PSRP less than 60 million? No. But under the circumstances, we have to manage. So maybe let me just say a little bit on that. One of the ways that we do it. We need to increase operational and investment funding like the PSRP versus bringing down the wage bill. So we saw the wage estimate at over 300 million. And we know from preliminary evidence that some of those names on wage on the payroll are not real. Like the police, for example, sent away a list of almost 100 persons who had no relationship with the police. And across other agencies, as the CSA Director General mentioned. So we decided to use the annualized estimate for the February payroll, which we ourselves managed. We couldn't go to January because they were already taken care of before we went in. So we used February and accounted for positions that are still to be filled across government. Superintendents and other county authorities are yet to be appointed. We accounted for all of that. So the actual amount you see in the budget, 297, the annualized version is far lower, but we say no. Let's leave room for other positions that are yet to be created. So we have a contingency arrangement that if, I'm saying if, just for the sake of argument, if the payroll audit proves that indeed 306 or 7 million is the true wage bill, we'll take care of that. Because as financial programmers, you also don't want to be caught off guard. You don't just want to presume that, oh, your actual wage bill will be less than 3 million, then the audit shows that you actually should be more than 3 million. So we took that contingency. But the indications are all pointing in the direction, giving our own financial data from the payroll, as well as information coming from the civil service agency, that the payroll will actually be less than 300 million. So, again, the budget that we are meeting to address follow the issue of why no sufficient resources for community services. Yes, it is a budget that we inherited. Again, that is not an excuse. So we did the best that we could under the circumstances. And part of it was a situation that we could not readily handle. For example, 2 versions of the draft budget were submitted by the previous administration to the legislature. The second draft budget was returned by the legislature while this administration was still being formed. So technically, there was no budget, neither a draft or an approved budget. So the numbers we inherited, we had to do the best we can. We have to do all the internal consultations, the external consultation across government, and also with the legislature to ensure that we come up with the 692.4 million. And like the minister mentioned, when we begin to work out the development plans, and we have plans for counties and districts, as well as plans for specific sector deliverables, we will ensure that those plans have the appropriate resources to service them over the 5-year course of whatever national plan will come up. So you want to add a little more?
Okay, continue with the meeting. Please introduce yourself.
So, my name is Desmond William, and I report for Abroad News. My question is specifically to Honorable Thompson. You mentioned about the budget, which is in the tune of 692.4 million, which is 10% on a decrease of the previous fiscal budget. I'm concerned, and a lot of Liberians are concerned about that the government will hope for budget growth, especially growth in economy ranging from the growth in the budget. Last year, or last administration budget has been on increase. This administration, this first budget is on decrease, as you said. What is the growth? Can one term this budget as growth? And if yes, what are the indicators in terms of the practical actualities on our local market?
Formula. So you will take 6 questions, one already. You take all the last 5 together and the minister will answer. That will be the question.
First question, there's a queue. Good afternoon. This other question goes to Mr. Pierre. Mr. Pierre, in your opening remarks, you made specific reference to the ongoing asset recovery process, which is raising eyebrows across the country, and which is also raising concerns, according to you, the independent development. And you talked about official development, some official development running into various stations in the form of undermining the process. My best guess is, I believe one of the officials of government you were alluding to is former Minister of State and now Senator of Liberia County, Lieutenant Mangiel. He argues that the ongoing exercise is not legal because it was not ordered by a court of competent jurisdiction. So my question is, on what legal grounds is the asset recovery process taking place?
But formula will that's the only question I will answer since it's the only one I have. So the final administrative team can continue. So, David, in the first place, you profit because you will read minds and know who I'm talking about. As far as I know, I did not call the name of any person. But since you brought Mr. McGill's name, and it's not a justification for anything, because I'm convinced that in this case, this government will do the right thing. I said from the beginning of my comments that when the investigation is concluded on the fact, it's just one incident. And you say raising eyebrows all over the country. The people I saw raising eyebrows are partisans who were assembling at their headquarters as though some war has been declared. How does that represent the country in the context of which you spoke? The very Nathaniel McGill, Senator Nathaniel McGill, you referenced, when they came to power, the fleet management exercise we're talking about was in existence. The person who presided over that process was renamed by then, Milbrough, Dr. Clarence Moneybank, who just ran in these elections, was grabbed in his car in Railway Market, escorted to his house, to the fence, thrown out of the car, placed in the fence, the car driven away. The government verbally announced that all those who purchase cars on our fleet management system should bring those vehicles for verification. I bought one of the old cars. Wanting to be law abiding, there was no court action, it's a public pronouncement from the government. I drove my car, Gilles Duncan Cassell and the rest of the people, they drove their car, they gave it to them. My girl presided over that process. He and I were always on the phone. So we just wanted to verify until we get the car back. Guess what? I paid into the central bank account $3,500 for the car. Neither was the money returned, nor was the car given back to me. So the same person talking about legal reliance? Really? So what we're doing here is a process that will not violate. Mr. Sulu has been talking to me. He was on his way to the GSA. I reassured him that when the process is concluded, once it is determined that there's no wrongdoing on his part, you will have his card. If they find otherwise, then what is required by law will be done. But are we seeing the same right abusers of yesterday are now the champions and angels of today? We do the right thing. In this country, people are afraid when you hear about accountability. That's why I told my big brother Sam Johnson last night on his phone talk. We're discussing the car. The big brother said, "Oh, Robert said, leave this person in the store. They brought the car down, you're discussing the car." And I said to him, "Mr. Jackson, the government you supported had power for 6 years. If they were convinced that Robert Salib and the others being referenced did wrong, what stopped you from persecuting them? If you did not, and you keep referencing them, it's politics." And I continue to say the time for politics will come. It is a terrain that we understand. You will not distract us from governance to politics. We will call your attention to governance and we'll govern. When the political time comes, let's meet in the political theater.
Thank you, Mr. Pierre. Please see the next section. Thank you. My name is Dr. Babakanza and I write for Repostal Media Online. I want to know from the Finance Ministry, have been DPs in the executive budget and then some of the legislators, why the DPs in the MFT budget? Thank you. Ministry of Finance budget increase, the executive branch, the Ministry of State decrease, Ministry of Finance increase. Please come.
Thank you. My name is Harris Bude and I report for Porsche FMT. So my concern is to the Ministry of Finance. I have a copy of the draft national budget that we currently looking at, but my attention has been drawn to the Ministry of Health. And I'm looking through the budget here from the Ministry of Health. And I'm seeing our first in terms of achievement during the last fiscal years. The Ministry of Finance, through this budget, is confirming to us that there is nothing available to point to in terms of achievement on the past budget. Now, if you look at this budget, there is a 10 billion increment in the Ministry of Health budget. Now, what puzzles me the most is that if you see the last budget was at 49 million and some thousands. Now the estimated return is at 47 million. So which means that the Ministry of Finance at the time allotted 49 million to the Ministry of Health. And at the end of the budget year, it was 47 million that the ministry used and additional 2 million reserved. Now, so what is the 41 million in terms of salaries for civil servants was at 41 million and some thousands. Now, the estimated return there, it went to 47 million in terms of salary. So, which means that the Ministry of Finance awarded about 41 million for salaries to the Ministry of Finance. And at the end of the budget year, the estimated return, the Ministry of Health, thank you. So, the estimated, yeah, no, the 40, let me get this correct. Yeah, because it only takes too fast. Okay. So this is where I am, right? If you look at the budget year for 2023, was at 49,917,000. That's in 2023. And at the end there, the estimated outturn was 47,654,000 dollars. So which means that this was less used than as per the one that the ministry placed in the budget for the Ministry of Health. Because if you talk about the outturn, it means that it's contrast to the estimated amount at the time. So